Last week, you and Kevin just came back from your New York trip. How
hmm
was that?
It was really fun. Went for like a week, pretty much a week.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think we had like a lot of stuff we wanted to do on our list. So the first day, it was like jam-packed with like all these different activities, but then we ended up being like super exhausted.
Oh, yeah,
Um, but like
because you have to
our
walk everywhere, right?
yeah, I got the biggest blisters on the backs of
Oh,
my feet. It was so disgusting.
oh my
But like
goodness.
yeah, it was really bad. But like the main point, like the main purpose of us like going is just to like, rest and like spend time together. And as like I felt like us doing so many things, which is like also fun, but like doing so many things in a day was just like more tiring than restful. So then the rest of the trip, we're like, okay, we're just gonna take it easy and like do stuff. But like if we don't
Yeah.
get to a lot of stuff, then like it's totally fine. But it was really fun. We got to eat a lot of good food. Um, Went to the Jimmy Fallon show, which was really fun. Went to see Wicked. We did
For
we
the
did a
first
good amount
time?
of stuff. My first time, Kevin's second time, but he saw it like a
Oh,
long time ago, so it was like new-ish to him. I don't know,
oh.
but it was fun though. I really liked it.
What are you learning about yourself and about God as God has put this type of work before you? Um, from your previous job to now your self-employed clothing business.
Well, I think when I was at my previous job, I like really struggled actually at that job. I mean, there were like multiple factors. Like there was like management factors, but also like personal struggles that
Mhm.
I had. Because like when I was in college, I studied fashion in college. And like when I was in college, I had these like big dreams of like, oh, like when I start working, I'm gonna work, I want to work at this like big name company. I want to do something that's like super cool, like in other people's eyes. Essentially like what the world feels is like cool. So I was
Mhm.
like really like gunning towards that. But then when my first job out of college was like the one that I had previously, and that job to me was like not the cool job I had in mind. And so
Mhm.
for like the almost 4 years I was there, I think one of my biggest struggles was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just feel so less than. And I don't know
Mhm.
why God has put me here. Like this job just feels so like I just like don't know what the purpose is. And like I feel like every time I tried to pursue like another door,
Mhm.
it God would just close it. And I'd be like, God, like why? Like why? How come you just keep closing all these doors? And I feel like even now that I'm like not at that job, I'm like self-employed now. Like I feel like there still is no like, oh, this is the exact reason why God didn't allow you to go to another position. Um, and I feel like, yeah, there was never like a clear like this is why, but I feel like what I learned from it and
Mhm.
how God has grown me from it is like just like being faithful, like where I'm called, but also like
Mhm.
that how the world sees like success is
Right.
is not like what is not how God sees it, and
Exactly.
God's definition of success is like faithfulness to him. I think that was really
Right.
hard for me because I was like, I want to make an impact. I want people to think I'm cool. So it's like a
Mhm.
lot of pride and a lot
Mhm.
of just, yeah, like focusing on myself, but like forgetting that like my purpose here on earth is not to like have people look at me, but it's just to like
Right.
serve God. So I think that
Mhm.
was like really hard. And like a lot of times I would like cry and just like, just feel like really bad about myself. And just, yeah, like forget that it's like not about me. And I think, even now, like as I'm like self-employed and not at that position, like I think I still struggle in like different in similar ways and also different ways. Like it could just be like, I mean, I think it's also similar in the fact that like I feel like, oh, like everyone else has these like great, big jobs, but like I feel like my little business is like nothing compared to like theirs. And just like I think it's like a lot of comparison, which is like
Right.
a really dangerous game.
Mhm.
And it could be like a money thing, like, oh my gosh, like I'm not making it as much as them. Like, and I had this kind of degree, but like they're making more than, it's just like all these different things and like comparing
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
Um, and just, yeah, I feel like the lesson is always for me just to like be faithful and like trust that like where God has put me is like it's not a mistake and it's like it was the best and like wisest
Mhm.
decision for me according to him.
Yes.
And yeah, like even though like I may think like I think like sometimes I'm so focused on myself and like what I think, and I forget that it's like it's not about me, you know.
Right, right.
So a lot about being faithful and surrendering that control to God. Yeah.
That's a great lesson to learn. I think
It's a
that
hard lesson.
God wants us to be faithful stewards.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, sometimes we're just waiting for that next opportunity because we have a plan and we have
Yeah.
goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you shared, that God is wise and good in his plans for us. And that
Yeah.
is something that requires faith to receive. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, do you feel like any of your work challenges affects like your self-worth or your identity?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is identity. I think that I'm like not good enough, or like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just yeah, like yeah, just like not good enough. I think that's always the word that like comes to my mind. It's like I think when I think about it, it's like kind of sad because like I really like look down at myself for like the lack of like worldly success that I have
Mm-hmm.
compared to like maybe like my classmates from school, like wow, like they're doing so many big things and like what am I doing? And like why am I like
Yes.
this,
Right, right.
Um, but I mean it's just like again the reminder, it's like it's not about like this work anything that you do, like my worth doesn't come from that, but it's like from Christ, and like
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just really yeah, it's really hard to remember that, and easy to forget that that's where like my identity comes from. But yeah, I think it just makes me feel like really less than a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's okay, Vanessa. I think we all have that understanding with work that ties into our worth, and also
Mm-hmm.
how we can be very performance driven and we want outcomes. We want to see numbers going up.
Yeah.
We want to see
Yeah.
like those next steps being reached. And God's, I guess this is the cost of following Christ,
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
just to remember that we are willing to give up those things,
Mm-hmm.
and the path that he has for you is going to reap spiritual blessings.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, thanks for sharing that. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about friendships. I think this is something that I still continue to reflect on in my own life, about
Mm.
friendships and relationships, specifically on the other side of college graduation. And up until the point you graduate college, your friendships are within those circles that your community is, whether it's your school, your work, um, your church community. And then a lot of changes happen after college graduation. Everybody moves and they
Mm-hmm.
start
Yeah.
new. Some people relocate and everything just gets uprooted. And I guess my question for you is, what have you learned? What are you learning about how friendship, how God uses friendships in different seasons?
I'm learning. I think like I think about like now and like
Mm-hmm.
my college friendships. And I think in college, it just seemed easier for some reason. I don't know why. But it was just maybe just like the proximity.
Yes, for
Yeah,
college.
everyone is just like
Yeah.
together. It was just so easy. But then
Mm-hmm.
when I got into young adult post college life, I was like, wow, it's like really what you said, like everyone moves, everyone like just things happen, and like people
Mm-hmm.
just kind of drift apart or whatever. And so we're just like you just are not as close as before or something. Um, and so I think like what I've learned is to like not compare these
Mm-hmm.
kind of relationships. I think they're like very different seasons of our lives. Not it's like not
Right.
neither are bad, obviously, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just different. And I think like when I first graduated, it was like, I mean, even now, honestly, it was really hard for me because I'm like, okay, I want like these really close and like just like instant, like,
Mm-hmm.
just like deep friendships. And like I was comparing it to my college ones but like
Right,
it wasn't
right.
happening like post
Mm-hmm,
college. And
mm-hmm,
so I think I got really frustrated and bitter because I was like, God, like, why are you not providing like good friends? Or like just friends
mm-hmm,
that I want, not even like good friends, but like the ones that I'm expecting and like, yeah, expecting. Um, and yeah, I think it was just really easy for me to get bitter about it and frustrated and like sad, honestly.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I think like God has provided like he has provided friends, he's provided sisters in my life. And I think I need to like not have like all these like crazy like ideals or like have all these like crazy expectations for friends, but like to just like I think to be content with them, but also to work to cultivate them. I think I
mm-hmm.
was also talking to someone else. Like I think sometimes I expect like good friendships to me like to be immediate. And when they're
Mm-hmm.
not immediate, I'm like, okay, what's wrong with this? Like, why is it not immediate? Like, why are we not immediately like having like a great time together? And like
Right,
to
right.
know that like good friendships honestly like take like cultivation, you know, and like it takes
Mm-hmm.
patience to cultivate it into a good friendship. And so yeah, I think I've been learning to be like patient with that and to also be
Mm-hmm.
proactive. I think like we can't just like sit around and like wait for people to come up to us. Although I'm very tempted to do that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I want other people to initiate with me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like I feel like I have to be proactive. I can't just wait for someone else to be like to ask me to hang out, you know. Um, but I should, you know, be like yeah, asking others and like being proactive about that. Um, yeah, that's a question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I
I
don't know where I'm
think
going with this.
it's definitely something that it's it involves faith, right? I think to
Yeah.
go back and think about the blessings of the former friendships that God had provided, it's like, well, of course, there's gratitude in those seasons of your life where you guys are walking so closely with one another. And college
Yeah.
really is a unique time in
So
this whole span of
unique.
life. You're never going to get that again.
Never. I always tell everyone,
Never.
I'm like, treasure this
Like that,
time.
that's it. Like that's not reality. That's called
Yeah.
college life.
Yes, for
But
sure.
I think I think another issue is that everyone is looking to fit in to a
Mm.
group and they want to be
Yeah.
part of a group or they want to feel like they're belonging into
Hmm.
something. And if everyone feels that way, nobody's gonna go anywhere. So I think
Yeah.
definitely um, we all have to take our steps to meet new friends and to be open.
Yeah.
And I do think in this adulthood, people are looking for friendships. I do think a lot
Yeah.
of people experience loneliness, especially right now. Um, you're like you said, friendships take time and it takes investment. And well, I'm going to add in there investments not on the screen, like
Hmm.
real in-person interactions. That's how God designed it. And if
Yeah.
you're feeling lonely, I think my encouragement to anyone out there is to put your phone down and maybe call someone to go
Yeah.
out and do something together. Otherwise, you know, when the hard times hit and you're looking for encouragement, like who are those friends that you can call now, right? Um, but you know, God is faithful. He
Yeah.
really does provide friendships of with people of different ages, I've learned.
Hmm. Oh yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you. I see you as a friend as well, even though
Hmm.
we
Me
are
too.
of a different generation.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that's also what God's been teaching me too, just like the generational. Like I think before it was like, oh, like your friends are in your like grade or like your age range, right? But like I feel
yeah,
like that
everything has to
doesn't
be similar, right?
yeah, but I was like, but that's actually like really not true and doesn't have to be true, you know? It's like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I have developed friendships with like older women and I'm like, wow, this is like really great. And it's like it's different, but it's still good, you know, it's still a
Yeah,
blessing
yeah,
and it's still
yeah.
encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah, but God designed us so that we would have good, intimate friendships. And I do believe He will provide in any any season of life that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see. I do think I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about was the conference that you recently attended this past summer. It was the Glory Conference. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
share a little bit about that?
Yes. So the conference, it was Glory Conference, with Jackie Hill Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she kind of like the conference was like pretty much based on her new book. It's called, I have it right here. It's called Holier Than Thou.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's centered on holiness and God's glory. So she talks about like idolatry, like social media, and like how that plays into it. And just like how we need to desire God above all things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think just some like takeaway points that I had. She talked about God's holiness, like I was saying, and how like God is set apart from us. He's just like not like even on our level, you know, like we can't even
Right, right.
comprehend like who God is. Um, and like because he's holy, she was saying like he cannot be indifferent to sin.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's just
Mm-hmm.
talking about like the gravity of sin, but then
Mm-hmm.
also she was saying like where there is God's wrath, like his mercy is even more. And I really appreciate, so she brought up Isaiah 6, and like I think her insight too was just like really, it was really encouraging to me. So like, you know, Isaiah 6, Isaiah is like seeing the Lord sitting on the throne, and then the seraphim, like, you know, he says like, woe is me. And then the
Mm-hmm.
seraphim, you know, brings puts a coal on his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and then says like, you know, you are forgiven of like all your sins, right? And like she was saying like when Isaiah saw like the Lord sitting on the throne, he immediately was like, woe is me, right? And like, you know, he
Mm-hmm.
recognized that he's a sinner. But then when the seraphim brought like that coal, the burning coal onto his mouth, she was saying that like Isaiah didn't do anything or say anything to like he never asked for forgiveness or does anything to deserve forgiveness, right? But like it's God who's the one who initiates that grace and mercy. And so just like highlighting that God is like a just and holy God, but he's also like merciful and loving. And so I think I just really appreciate that like insight of like, oh, he never like did anything or said anything to be like, oh, like you deserve like, you know, forgiveness, like you're actually really good or something. But like
Mm-hmm.
God is the one who initiates it. So I was like, oh, that's like a really beautiful picture of like the gospel, you know, and like how God
Right,
loves
right.
us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I feel like also I just feel like Jackie has like a really like amazing way of like just speaking truth. I feel like it's, you know,
Yeah,
like
I
a
agree.
simple truth, and like she just speaks it so eloquently. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I
I
was crying.
know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, it was really good. But yeah, and I think like the thing that she ended with that I was like really encouraged by, like she was saying, I'll just read it. She was saying like the volume of what the world says is really loud, and that seems
mm-hmm.
to make what they're saying true. But sometimes Jesus speaks in a whisper, and one day we'll see God in heaven, and this earth will not last forever. And I think like when she said that, it just like gave me a lot of hope because I feel like there are a lot of like scary and like sad things. You know, just like this world is just fallen and it's like
Mm-hmm.
sad and broken. But I think she's just reminding us that like, you know, like even though the world seems loud, like God is still working. He's still faithful. And like one day this earth will pass away. And like soon we'll be, you know, in heaven in glory with him and rejoicing. And like that will just be like a distant memory, you know? And so I think like it just gave me like a lot of hope. And I think I just walked away with that from that conference, just like having like a higher view of God and just
Mm-hmm.
like being more encouraged to like really follow him and like desire him above all else, and just yeah, just like hoping and waiting for like the day that Christ returns, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's so
yeah.
so encouraging to hear. I think
Yeah.
that to be in a place of waiting and eagerly anticipating Christ's return is exactly how we should be living, with
Mm-hmm.
that eternal mindset at the forefront of our days. So, yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. I'm glad that you were able to attend. I wish I could have attended that conference.
Dude, I wish you would come to California.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
you know, actually another thing that I was really encouraged by was the worship. Cause so like it's like a
Oh,
predominantly like it was actually at a black church, and their worship, it was like the traditional like gospel music.
oh my
And I was like,
goodness.
why? I was
Don't
I
you
wish
feel
our
it in
church,
your soul?
okay, you know, actually one time like I don't know if you want to post this, but like some people say like, oh, like if you raise your hand or if you like shout like hallelujah, it's distracting. But people
I
were
never
doing
heard
that
that
there.
before.
Oh, people have told me that before. And I was like, but at that conference, I was especially like, that is so untrue. I was so blessed by it. I was
Just
like,
hearing the praise of someone else.
yeah, and just seeing them dance. I was like, oh my gosh, the dancing
Oh,
was
I
just
know.
fun.
Did you dance?
And we were like, well, we were kind of like moving, but I wasn't like as like dancing as like other people. But I was like, that is just so encouraging
There's
because you
just like a
see it.
freedom, right?
Yeah, and you just see like the joy, like coming out, and it's not just. I mean,
They
like
don't have
nothing.
fear of man over there.
No, there is no fear of man. I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, they're like dancing,
They're
everyone's
not
like moving.
self-conscious. They don't care
It
what people
was
think.
it was honestly so amazing. And I was like, I wish we would do that, but I feel like we're just really scared.
Lead the way, Vanessa. Lead the
Dude,
way.
I don't know. But it was so encouraging. I was like, this is not distracting at all. I don't know who thought that, but yeah,
Aw,
it was really good.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love other cultures. I love learning
Hmm.
about their culture and how they worship. And it's
Yeah.
like a fuller picture of, you know, Christ's glory of
Yeah,
the church.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're awkward people.
We're so awkward. I really hate it. I'm so awkward.
I think that's why it's really healthy to be around people who are different and of Christians with different ethnic backgrounds.
Yeah.
We are an incomplete church if it's just a Chinese church. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it was really nice to see a glimpse of that and just how they express their faith. I really
oh, I
liked it.
agree.